Alright, good afternoon. Today, small winning day, but took one small win, like a little scalp, and then I took a little loss later in the day. So, going into the day, I know I kind of have a lot of crap on my chart right now. I'll clear it up a bit, but zooming out a little bit, let's look at the 4 hour. Taking the fib, this is what I have drawn out here, the higher time frame OTE with those two yellow lines, and then those two red lines is the standard deviation projection of this original manipulation move. So if you look, here's our standard deviation projection. In the morning we were holding this. I'm not even going to go back and forth showing ES and NQ. We had like a ton of SMTs in the morning. ES is just chopping all over the place here. And we had a ton of little SMTs, and then the biggest one was NQ came and took Asia low, and ES was nowhere near it. But regardless, we had this 1 hour fair value gap here, and then if you look at the Fibonacci of this most recent leg on this side, we ended up dropping down into discount of this range as well. But regardless, looking at this 1 hour, so in the morning I was very cautious to trade up here. I guess you could have taken trades here. There's probably some sort of setup. We come up, take London high. We didn't take London low yet. Had this 5 minute, I'm sure you could have looked at some sort of internal model here. Or actually we did take the low, but then we came down, hunted Asia low. Possibly could have been a setup there, but if you watched the previous video, I want to drill it into my head to sort of recognize what's happening on a higher time frame before moving on to like a 1 minute chart. Sometimes I get too caught up in the lower time frames, so I was staying back on the 15, the 5, the 1 hour, trying to see what was going to happen on the higher time frame. But looking at the 1 hour, at this point in time, when we started to really dump down here, we had this SMT, but to me this was looking like pretty bearish, I won't lie. I was looking for possibly us to retrace into here and then have some sort of like sell model, because this to me was looking more like a market structure shift, right? You have the high, you come up, take the high, and then big displacement down. But I was being very careful because we also came to discount of this range, and it's looking like a buy model on a 4 hour, so I was just being careful. But anyway, zooming back in a bit, looking at the 5. So I didn't really see any setup here, but you had this low resistance liquidity, right? This trend line, all these highs that haven't been taken yet. We end up holding this inverse 5 minute fair value gap before ripping through all that liquidity to the upside. And then we have this 1 hour fair value gap. So at this point in time, we had this 15-minute fair value gap, and we're at this 1 hour, right? So we're retracing off of this 1 hour, and basically for me here, I was looking at this, saying like, this is the pivotal moment. Like, are we going to be bearish or are we going to be bullish? Because we could have just rejected off this 1 minute, sold off, right, and continued, a sell model all the way down. So I wanted to see how we were going to react here, and we end up holding this 15-minute, and if you look at a 30-second chart, right after lunch, right about 1 o'clock, like right when lunch ends, we hold this 15-minute, took some internal lows down here, we displaced up, but I wasn't ready to take this trade yet. So this is this 30-second fair value gap. We end up respecting that, and then we had this this bearish 30-second fair value gap here. And so once we just ripped right through that and didn't respect it at all, tapped above this high, I was like, all right, it's ready to go. So I longed pretty much. We came down, tapped this as inverse, and I think I kind of got filled like right up here, and I had my stop just below this candle or so. And I think this trade is good. You have the low resistance liquidity run, and I think the reason why it was okay for me to sort of long into this bearish fair value gap is that in order for me to have a bearish bias, we would have to see this right here. You come up, you take this, maybe you reject, have another internal model or something like this, and then boom, big market structure shift here, right, before continuing the model down. So you would want to sweep this high and then have a market structure shift there on like a 5-minute, for me to have a bearish bias. So I was okay longing in this area, as well as, it also just looked like a pretty good buy model, but I was a little bit conflicted here. And, I'm only trading one contract, so unfortunately, I just took it off right at this high. This is the low-hanging fruit. This is what I was confident in. I didn't know if we were going to go any further, but this is one of those scenarios where if I had, many contracts, I would have taken a partial here, moved my stop to break even right when we took this high, and then I would have, had another one here, and I would have just been scaling out along these highs, all the way up. But, I'm not trading multiple contracts. I'm just trading one. So got that little scalp, and then once we blew through this 1 hour, I was like, all right, we're definitely bullish now. We're definitely going to this high. So we had a 5-minute fair value gap here that we were kind of holding on to, and this was the other trade that I took. We were holding on to this 5-minute, starting to come up to the upside, starting to round over, right? This was looking pretty bullish at the time right here. So we had this little 1-minute fair value gap, and then we had this order block. I longed on the order block just because I thought like this 1 minute is a little too far extended. And then, we had all of these fair value gaps here. So I wanted to keep my stop underneath this candle, looking to just scalp it to the upside. I think the model looks pretty good. We ended up taking this high, and we had an SMT. I'm not exactly sure where. I think it was this high with ES. But again, we were having SMTs all day, so I actually saw it and chose to ignore it. And then if you look down here, we have all this low resistance liquidity right there, and we had not come anywhere near discount of this range. So, or I guess we did come near it, but we didn't come to it. So, I don't think the setup's that bad, but it's definitely not a great setup given these conditions. So we end up having that low resistance liquidity run, just completely dumping through all those lows, tapping the 1 hour as inverse, bouncing to the upside, and then we kind of chop in here for a bit before having one final manipulation move at the end of the day. Had this 5-minute fair value gap here, the 1 hour inverse. We made basically equal highs too. That was another reason why I was longing, because I thought we were going to go just take out those right away. But this was OTE the range. Had this one final sweep. I'm pretty sure this was also an SMT, just like all day SMTs. And then starting to run to the upside, and then consolidating for a bit. Once market closed, we just completely ripped through all those buy side levels. So I think overall this was a much better trading day. Obviously, in terms of the money, it wasn't very good, but basically a break-even day. But compared to sort of how I've been doing this week has been a pretty bad week. I think every time I'm losing these trades, it's paying tuition, right? And I think I'm getting better each time. I'm trying to stay disciplined, and I think this ideology of trading is much better. Waiting for a 5-15 minute or something like that, like a little bit higher time frame model. Because when you're looking at this looks like a buy model, right? When I'm on the 1 minute and I'm just like, looking at all of this, it's just, there's not enough context. And so I get, stopped out a lot. So I think, it obviously sounds pretty obvious to stay on the higher time frames and not get caught up in the lower time frames, but that's just something I gotta keep drilling into my head. And once I see a pullback to a higher time frame fair value gap and I'm confident in the model itself, that's when I can drop down to the 1 minute, 30 second, 15 second and look for an entry there to try to have tight risk and some good reward. So overall, pretty decent day. Probably shouldn't have taken the second trade, but again, I don't think it was all that bad, other than those the SMTs and stuff like that. So it definitely wasn't good. But going into tomorrow, let's delete all this for a second. Looking ugly on the charts. So overall, I do pretty much think it's probably a buy model. Looking at the daily, just the way we balance this disgusting volume imbalance that never even is still a volume imbalance because there's just only wicks here. But we just completely ripped to the upside. So it seems like we're gonna go target these highs, but looking at the 4 hour, we got this big 4 hour fair value gap. We're in OTE of this higher time frame range, but in order for me to see a sell model here, another thing to note, look at all this generated liquidity here, right? So going into tomorrow, I'm going to be very careful, but I'm not taking shorts off the table. I definitely think this could turn into a sell model, but I'm just going to sort of sit on the sidelines for a while like I did today and just wait until I'm confident in what I'm looking at. But in order to see a sell model, I would have to see, maybe we consolidate during the overnight. We come up, take this internal liquidity, maybe we have another manipulation move, big displacement, maybe we respect a fair value gap in here. Maybe we have another internal manipulation move, something like that to the downside. But overall, in order for me to be confident that this is a sell model, we would pretty much have to have, like displacement through this low, or we would just have to form a bunch more structure in order for me to have that bias, right? We would have to displace through like a new swing low or something like that, and then come up, have some sort of internal manipulation and a fair value gap. That way I could target something like that, right? Where you come up, take this high, take this high, you have your market structure shift to the downside, fair value gap, internal model, right? Market structure shift, fair value gap. That's the only way that I would be looking to take shorts here. But either way, I'm just going to be careful, right? Maybe we just pull back into like a 15-minute or a 1 hour and sort of continue our buy model to the upside. But I want to wait and let the structure tell me what to do, because this week hasn't been the greatest. It's going to be a Friday, so who knows. Looking at news, let's see what we got tomorrow. We got 8:30, we got some PPI numbers, and then 10 a.m. We got prelim consumer sentiment, so I'll just wait till after 10 a.m. I might have said 10 p.m. before, honestly, but after 10 a.m. is when I'll sort of look at the structure and try to form my bias there. But until then, we'll see what happens. Hopefully you made some money, and hopefully you make some money tomorrow. So if I take a trade, I'll make a recap, post it. So see you then. Peace.